Hook, midnight, you know what makes me want to punch a wall right now? When people sit there and act like Roman Reigns sending a warning to the Usos is just typical bloodline drama that doesn't matter. Are you out of your mind? Do you not understand what just happened? The Usos just won their 9th tag team championship, 9th, making history again, and instead of celebrating with them, instead of acknowledging their greatness, Roman Reigns looked them dead in the eyes and delivered a warning so chilling, so absolutely terrifying, that it sent shockwaves through the entire WWE locker room. This isn't just family tension. This isn't just storyline filler. This is the beginning of what could be the most explosive implosion in WWE history, and if you think this is going to end peacefully, you haven't been paying attention to how the bloodline operates. Jimmy and G just achieved something legendary, and their own family is threatening to destroy them for it. If that doesn't make your blood boil with anticipation, if that doesn't make you want to see where this goes, then you're not a real wrestling fan. Stick around because what I'm about to break down will have you furious at how disrespected the Usos are being and absolutely terrified of what Roman Reigns is planning to do about their success. Segment 1, the historic victory. Let me set the stage properly because the Usos' 9th tag team championship victory wasn't just another win, it was history-making. These brothers have now won more tag team championships than any team in WWE history. Read that again. More than the Dudley Boys. More than Edge and Christian. More than the Hardy Boys. More than New Day. They've officially cemented themselves as the most decorated tag team in WWE history, and that's not hyperbole, that's fact. The match on Raw was incredible. The Usos faced a game team who gave them everything they could handle. Near falls had the crowd on their feet. High-impact moves had people gasping. This wasn't a squash match where the Usos dominated, they had to earn this victory. They had to prove they deserved this historic moment. When that final 3 count happened, when the referee's hand hit the mat for the 3rd time, the building erupted. The Usos embraced in the ring, holding those championships high, tears in their eyes because they knew what they'd just accomplished. This was a culmination of over a decade of hard work, sacrifice, evolution, and dedication to tag team wrestling. They'd reached the pinnacle of their division in a way that can never be taken away from them. The celebration was pure. You could see genuine emotion on their faces. Jimmy was yelling, "We did it." G was pointing to the crowd, acknowledging everyone who'd supported them through their entire journey. This was their moment. Their legacy solidified. Nobody could ever question their place in tag team wrestling history after this. They are the greatest tag team of all time, and the record books now prove it. But then everything changed. The music stopped. The celebration froze. And Roman Reigns' music hit. Quick engagement. Before we continue, I need to know, do you think the Usos are the greatest tag team in WWE history? Or do you think another team deserves that title? Drop your answer in the comments now and defend your choice. Segment 2, Roman's appearance. The atmosphere in the arena shifted the moment Roman's music played. The crowd reaction was mixed, some excited to see the tribal chief, others sensing that something was wrong. The Usos looked at each other with confusion and slight concern. This was their moment. Why was Roman here? Roman walked out with Paul Heyman by his side, that intensity in his eyes that we've come to know so well. He wasn't smiling. He wasn't congratulating. He was observing, studying, calculating. He walked down that ramp with purpose, and you could feel the tension building with every step he took. The Usos stood in the ring, holding their championships, trying to read the situation. Were they about to be acknowledged? Were they about to be celebrated by their tribal chief? The uncertainty was palpable. Roman stepped into the ring, and the silence was deafening. You could hear a pin drop in that arena. Paul Heyman raised the microphone to speak, but Roman grabbed it from him. This wasn't going to be filtered through the Wiseman. This was going to come straight from the tribal chief himself. Roman stood face to face with his cousins, looking at those tag team championships, then looking into their eyes. 9 times, Roman said, his voice low and controlled. 9 times you've won those titles. That's impressive. That's historic. That's interesting. The way he said interesting sent chills down everyone's spine. This wasn't pride in his voice. This wasn't celebration. This was something darker. Segment 3, the warning. What Roman said next will be talked about for months, possibly years. He continued, "You know what's also interesting? You did this without me. You did this without acknowledging your tribal chief. You did this like you don't need the bloodline anymore." The accusation hung in the air like a threat. Jimmy tried to speak, to defend, to explain, but Roman raised his hand. "Silence. I don't remember giving you permission to pursue these titles. I don't remember you asking if this was what the family needed. You acted independently. You acted like individuals. And that's a problem. The entitlement. The control. This is what the bloodline has become under Roman's leadership, a dictatorship where even historic achievements are questioned if they don't serve the tribal chief's agenda." The Usos looked stunned. They'd just achieved greatness, and instead of support, they were getting interrogated. G finally spoke up, emotion in his voice. We did this for the bloodline. We did this to bring more gold to the family. We're making us all look. Roman cut him off. You don't decide what makes us look good. I do. The tribal chief decides everything. And you making decisions without consulting me, without getting my blessing, that's disrespect. Then came the warning that has everyone shook. Roman leaned in close and said, "You're my family. I love you. But don't forget, I'm the head of this family. And if the body stops following what the head says, sometimes you have to cut off the parts that aren't functioning properly. Congratulations on your 9th championship. Make sure it's not your last as part of the bloodline." The threat was clear. Roman just told the Usos that if they don't fall in line, if they continue acting independently, they could be excommunicated from the family. Possibly worse. The Usos stood there, processing, as Roman dropped the microphone and left, Heyman scrambling to follow. The celebration was ruined. The historic moment was tainted. And the future of the bloodline was suddenly in serious question. Trivia break, here's one for the longtime fans. Before this 9th title win, the Usos were tied with which legendary tag team for the most championship reigns? Drop your answer below and let's see who remembers. Segment 4, breaking down Roman's psychology. Let's analyze what's really happening here, because Roman's warning wasn't random, it's calculated manipulation. Roman has always been about control. Since becoming the tribal chief, his entire identity has been built on everyone in the bloodline serving his vision, his goals, his legacy. The Usos achieving something this massive without it being directly tied to Roman's storyline is a threat to his authority. Think about it from Roman's twisted perspective. He's been the Universal Champion, the undisputed champion, the face of WWE for years. Everything has revolved around him. The Usos were supposed to be his soldiers, his enforcers, extensions of his will. But by winning these tag titles independently, by creating their own legacy, they've shown they don't need Roman to be successful. That's terrifying for a control freak like the tribal chief. Roman sees their success as potential rebellion. If the Usos can thrive without him, what's stopping them from eventually standing up to him? What's stopping them from choosing their own path over the bloodline's path? This is Roman's way of reasserting dominance before they get any ideas about independence. The psychological warfare is brilliant but also toxic. Roman is taking what should be the happiest moment of the Usos' career and making it about him. He's making them question whether their achievement even matters if he doesn't approve it. That's narcissistic behavior at its finest, and it's exactly what makes Roman such a compelling villain. He genuinely believes he's right to do this. Segment 5, the USOS Dilemma. Now let's talk about the impossible position the Usos are in right now, because this is heartbreaking. They just achieved their dreams. They just made history. They just secured their legacy as the greatest tag team ever. And their own family is threatening them for it. How do you process that? How do you respond to that? Jimmy and G have been loyal to Roman through everything. They've fought his battles. They've defended his honor. They've stood by him when everyone else turned their backs. They've been the foundation of the bloodline's dominance. And this is how they're repaid? With suspicion? With threats? With demands that they need permission to achieve greatness? The brothers are now faced with a choice that will define their futures. Do they bow down to Roman, acknowledge that their success belongs to him, and continue being his servants? Or do they stand up for themselves, defend their right to have their own accomplishments, and risk being kicked out of the bloodline or worse? Either choice comes with massive consequences. If they submit to Roman, they're admitting that nothing they do matters unless he says it does. Their historic 9th championship becomes just another tool in Roman's arsenal rather than their achievement. Their legacy becomes footnoted as Roman Reigns' cousins rather than standing on its own merit. But if they rebel, if they tell Roman they don't need his approval, the bloodline could explode. Roman has shown he's willing to turn on anyone who doesn't serve his purposes. Solo Sikoa is lurking in the background, potentially ready to enforce Roman's will. The Usos could find themselves on the outside of the family, targets of the very faction they helped build. Engagement question, quick poll for everyone watching. If you were Jimmy or GUSO, what would you do? Submit to Roman and keep the peace, or stand up for yourself and risk everything? Let me know your choice and why in the comments. Segment 6, the Bloodline's fracture. What's happening right now is the beginning of the Bloodline's inevitable implosion, and we've been building to this for months. The signs have been there if you've been paying attention. Solo Sikoa's increasingly prominent role. Roman's more paranoid behavior. The tension between family loyalty and individual ambition. This was always going to happen, the question was just when and how. The Bloodline's strength has always been their unity. "We the ones" wasn't just a catchphrase, it was a promise that they were stronger together than apart. But Roman's authoritarian leadership style has slowly poisoned that unity. He's turned a family into a cult where he's the supreme leader and everyone else is expected to follow blindly. This creates a powder keg situation where one spark could cause everything to explode. The Usos' 9th championship might be that spark. If they don't handle Roman's warning perfectly, if they say the wrong thing or make the wrong move, we could see the Bloodline tear itself apart in spectacular fashion. Other members of the family are watching too. Solo Sikoa has to be making calculations. Where does he stand if the Usos rebel? Does he side with Roman and become the new enforcer? Or does he see an opportunity to seize power for himself? Paul Heyman is always playing chess while everyone else plays checkers. What's his angle in all this? The fascinating part is that no matter what happens, someone loses. If the bloodline stays together, the Usos lose their individual identity. If the bloodline splits, they lose the strength that comes from family unity. If Roman forces them out, he loses his most loyal soldiers. There's no clean resolution here, which is what makes this storyline so compelling and tragic. Segment 7, Fan Reaction and Controversy. The wrestling world has been ablaze since this segment aired. Social media exploded with reactions, opinions, and hot takes. Everyone has something to say about Roman's warning, and the fanbase is divided in fascinating ways. One camp is saying finally, the bloodline drama is reaching its peak. This is what we've been waiting for. These fans see this as the natural evolution of the storyline and are excited for the inevitable conflict. They want to see the Usos stand up to Roman. They want to see the family war that's been brewing. Another camp is frustrated, saying why can't the Usos just have their moment? Why does everything have to be about Roman? These fans are tired of Roman's character dominating every storyline. They wanted the Usos' historic 9th championship to be celebrated without immediately being overshadowed by tribal chief drama. A third group is defending Roman's actions from a character perspective, saying of course he'd react this way, it's consistent with who he is as the tribal chief. These fans appreciate the psychology and the realistic portrayal of a controlling leader who sees any independent success as a threat. The discourse has been intense. People are arguing about whether this helps or hurts the Usos' legacy. Debates are raging about whether Roman is the best or worst thing to happen to his cousins' careers. The fact that people are so passionate in their opinions proves that this storyline is working. It's generating genuine emotional investment. Segment 8, Historical Context. To truly appreciate what's happening, we need to understand the bloodline's history because this faction has been built over years of careful storytelling. Roman aligned with the Usos during his tribal chief transformation in 2020. Together, they became the most dominant force in WWE, collecting championships and destroying anyone who stood in their way. The Usos' record-breaking 622-day tag title reign happened during the height of bloodline supremacy. They were unstoppable. But even then, there were hints of the control Roman exerted. Decisions were made by him. Strategies were his. The Usos were incredibly successful, but always in service of Roman's grand design. When their reign ended and they took time away, it created a shift. Roman continued his dominance with Solo Sikoa as his new enforcer. The family dynamic changed. And now that the Usos are back and winning gold again, the question is whether they're willing to return to that subservient role or if their time away gave them perspective on their own value. Looking at wrestling history, faction breakups are often the most memorable storylines. The Shield's split created 3 megastars. Evolution's dissolution elevated its members to new heights. DX's various iterations and separations created legendary moments. The Bloodline's eventual breakup has the potential to be just as iconic if done correctly. The tragedy here is that this is family. This isn't just a stable of wrestlers who teamed up for mutual benefit. These are actual relatives, which makes every threat, every manipulation, every potential betrayal feel more personal and more painful. The stakes are higher when blood is involved. Trivia answer. Remember the trivia about which team the Usos were tied with? It was New Day at 8 championships. But the Usos have now surpassed them with this historic 9th title win. Segment 9, What happens next? The question everyone is asking is, what comes next? How does this story evolve from here? There are several possible directions, and each one has massive implications for WWE's future. Scenario 1, the Usos submit, Jimmy and G acknowledge Roman's authority, apologize for overstepping, and pledge renewed loyalty. This keeps the bloodline together but destroys the Usos' credibility. Their historic achievement becomes Roman's achievement. They remain stuck in his shadow. This is the safest option but also the most disappointing for fans who want to see them stand up for themselves. Scenario 2, tension builds, the Usos don't immediately rebel but don't completely submit either. They walk a tightrope, trying to maintain family unity while also asserting their own importance. This creates weeks of compelling television as the tension escalates, with small moments of defiance leading to bigger confrontations. Eventually, something gives, but the slow burn makes the eventual explosion more impactful. Scenario 3, immediate rebellion, the Usos tell Roman they're done being controlled, that their success is theirs, and if he can't accept that, they'll go their own way. This leads to an immediate split, with the bloodline becoming enemies. We get dream matches of Usos versus Roman, potentially with Solo Sikoa in the mix. This is the most dramatic option and gives us the most immediate payoff. Scenario 4, the twist, what if this is all a test? What if Roman is intentionally pushing the Usos to see if they'll break, and when they stand up to him, he respects them for it? This would be a swerve that keeps the bloodline together while also giving the Usos their moment. It's the least likely option but would be fascinating if executed well. My prediction? We're getting scenario 2. WWE knows how to build drama, and rushing this storyline would be a mistake. Expect weeks of increasing tension, with the Usos trying to balance family loyalty and personal pride, until finally something pushes them over the edge and the bloodline explodes in spectacular fashion at a major premium live event. Segment 10, the bigger picture. Let's zoom out and talk about what this means for WWE as a whole, because the bloodline story isn't happening in a vacuum, it affects everything. Roman has been the central figure of WWE television for years. The Usos have been crucial to that story. How this plays out determines the direction of multiple divisions and numerous wrestlers' careers. If the bloodline splits, WWE needs to be ready with plans for everyone involved. Roman would likely continue as a top heel or possibly turn face depending on how the split plays out. The Usos would need meaningful opposition and storylines that justify their independence. Solo Sikoa needs to be positioned for success regardless of which side he's on. The tag team division specifically would be transformed by a bloodline split. The Usos as faces fighting against Roman's allies would create fresh matchups and new dynamics. Alternatively, if the Usos remain heels but independent, that creates a different set of possibilities with them as mercenaries who answer to no one. The championship implications are huge. The Usos now hold tag gold. If Roman currently holds or pursues singles gold, you have a situation where the family controls multiple titles but might be at war with each other. That's compelling television that writes itself. Younger talent would benefit enormously from this storyline playing out. If the bloodline members start feuding with each other, it opens up space for new stars to step into that main event picture. If the Usos need allies in their fight against Roman, it elevates whoever sides with them. The ripple effects could reshape WWE's entire landscape. Closing segment, here's the absolute reality of the situation. Roman Reigns warning the Usos after their historic 9th championship victory is one of the most significant moments in recent WWE storytelling. This isn't just another promo. This isn't just family drama for drama's sake. This is the turning point in the bloodline saga that we've been building toward for years. The Usos deserve to have their achievements celebrated. They deserve to be recognized as the greatest tag team in WWE history without qualification or conditions. The fact that their own family is threatening them during what should be their proudest moment is infuriating but also brilliantly compelling television. Roman Reigns is operating as a toxic leader who can't handle anyone succeeding without his permission. His need for control is destroying the family from within. The question is whether the Usos will continue enabling that behavior or finally stand up and reclaim their independence. Either way, we're witnessing something special. To anyone who thinks this storyline doesn't matter, who thinks it's just more of the same, you're missing the point. This is peak professional wrestling storytelling, complex characters, genuine emotion, real stakes, and a situation where there's no easy answer. This is why we love this business. Now I need to hear from you. Do you think the Usos should stand up to Roman or stay loyal to the bloodline? What do you think Roman's real intentions are with this warning? How do you think this storyline ends? Drop every thought you have in the comments because this discussion is just beginning. Hit that like button if you're invested in the bloodline storyline. Subscribe to Wrestling World CC for more content that breaks down the real meaning behind WWE's biggest moments. Share this video with everyone who needs to understand the gravity of what's happening. And remember, history was made with that 9th championship, but the story is far from over. The Usos are champions. Roman is watching. The family is fracturing. And we're all witnesses to what might become the most explosive storyline conclusion in WWE history. The warning has been delivered. The lines have been drawn. And soon, very soon, someone is going to have to make a choice that changes everything. This isn't the end, it's the beginning of the end.